And there's a king list that shows the beginning of the king list begins in about 39,000 BC. So there is proof that they've been around that long. Trying to take a very long story and cut it short. Give me the cliff note again.
Just the Younger Dryas. The Younger Dryas, what is it?
So basically, the Younger Dryas is the third of the Ice Age event. And I have to apologize, there's a lot of noise going on outside, which you can't hear, which is really distracting me. It's the last of three major ice ages that occurred, and this one lasted about 800 years, began in 10,800 BC, as a result of a massive meteorite strike, which came from the Torrid meteor shower, we now are well informed, and you can see vestiges of the impacts in North Carolina all the way to Florida. It's called the Carolina Bays, all of these incredible depressions, thousands of them, and you can see the trail of the actual impact as well. And it's one of three Ice Age events which caused a rising and lowering of the sea levels, dropping and raising the temperatures over the course of 500,000 years, which is nothing in geological record. But since then, and I was talking to Robert Schock, the geologist, about this, over a sort of a very quick brunch and a very quick pint, which he still owes me, by the way. And I'll be seeing him this next weekend, so I'm going to collect my debt from him. We were saying, because his big thing is about solar flares and the fact that the sun, during this peak activity, does, on occasion, reach out at these big flares, and the Earth, at the wrong place at the wrong time, will get incinerated. Now, in 2500 BC, the Chinese fleet in the Pacific got completely destroyed by a solar flare. From China all the way to New Zealand, they found one of the ships in New Zealand, 2500 BC, and that's just part of the story, by the way. In the Middle East, in the Near East, in 1300 BC, we have another major event that incinerated everything from Anatolia all the way down to Palestine, and it brought about the end of the Bronze Age in the Mediterranean. So we've had 13 near end of civilization scenarios in the last 11,000 years alone. And this brings us back to the idea of why did we build temples and standing stones and stone circles which are obsessed with the sky. I mean, if you and I wanted to build a calendar to tell us where the sun is and the moon is so that we can grow crop, you just take some sticks and you put them on the ground and you figure out the position of the sun and the moon in the course of the year, and you're done. And it'll serve you for generations. You don't have to use 400-ton rocks to tell you what's going up in the sky, unless there's something in the sky that's important for you to know in relationship to the Earth to get you to prepare for upcoming events. And that's my little theory that I've observed all around the world, the obsession with long periods of time. The Maya calculated 140,000 years in one of their calendars. Why? You didn't need that because you'd be dead by then, and so would all your family. Unless, of course, you're telling the people that are coming after you to be prepared for where the Earth is in space relative to the solar system and where the solar system is relative to the galaxy, because luck favors the prepared. So if you know what's coming your way and you know what the sun is doing, you can hide. And we now have the evidence of many tunnels, cities under the Earth, specifically in Turkey and Anatolia, which shows that, 50,000 people could very easily cohabit in there and survive a big outcome. I had the same story in New Zealand with the Waikaha, which sounds like this happened around 2500 BC, when that incineration destroyed the eastern side of the South Island. And they hid in the caves, they had a precognition of what was happening, and then when it came out 3 weeks later, they found the whole place completely razed and burned to a crisp. It took out many of their native bird species. So we have had these events before, and many more will come since then, which is why NASA now is also obsessed with the sky and blowing objects out of the sky. And how can we move this asteroid? Because they read the stories that people like Grant and myself write. We just keep retelling the same story. And I bumped into people at NASA conferences, and they said, no, we love reading your stories because it tells us that we should be looking at the Torrid meteor shower every November, because that's the big culprit. That's where most of these rocks come from to keep destroying us. The sun is quite predictable. We know what the sunspot activity is, just not how much it's going to be. That's the big problem. Sometimes there's small solar outbursts, and then there's really big ones. And if we're in the wrong place at the wrong time, there's nothing we can do about it. except hide in caves. So there is that sort of wonderful storytelling mechanism to tell us that to be prepared is to survive from any day.
Now, you were talking about asteroids. We have an asteroid belt in the solar system. But according to some ancient stories, that wasn't always asteroids. According to these ancient texts, that was a planet that was destroyed. You've heard this story. So, what's your feeling on that? And then also, to piggyback on that, I think NASA's just discovered that there is another planet within that asteroid belt that they find that they're like, oh, we never saw that before. And there's an actual small planet there that was not. It's not just a giant asteroid, it's like an actual planet. And they're trying to figure out more information about that. So that's just two things I found about the asteroid belt. But I found that whole story fascinating. Yes. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I mean, we can only speculate based on what we know, and that is that it seems to be something even larger. And if we just go back to 1970, the comet Shoemaker-Levy that blasted its way into Jupiter, and Jupiter is wonderful. Jupiter takes a hit for the Earth more often than we give it credit for. It's there for
the gravity, gravity too.
Yeah, talk about design, and Saturn is like, they're the gatekeepers. They're 2/3 of the way into the system. They're good gatekeepers with the gravitational pull of those things in. So I suspect that there must have been some big body there that was also in the wrong place at the wrong time, at the right projectile, at the right velocity, at the right angle, took it out and created the asteroid belt. Now, I mean, we have the same thing here on the planet as well. We often get hit by big things where the Earth actually stops spinning, and sometimes it stops spinning the wrong way around. And again, to quote the Egyptians, we've been around, and I'm quoting, we've been around so long that we notice the time when the Earth sets where it now rises and the sun sets where it now rises. And the sun sets where it now rises and rises where it now sets. We've experienced that 4 times, and we've experienced the Earth also being upside down at one point. Not the actual magnetic field. The poles actually reversed because of something big hit the Earth, but the right trajectory at the right position on the face of the Earth to give it that nice motion that tilts the Earth upside down. And then also sometimes the Earth actually goes backwards, it rotates backwards on its axis. And of all the big changes that occur regularly, that's the most drastic of them all. That's the exact quote that the Egyptians told the Greeks, which of course the story then gets fed to Plato eventually, through Solon, the scholar. So this is the sort of mechanics that we're dealing with. And it goes back to my hypothesis that the reason why we were so obsessed with building temples, stone circles, and other big rock mechanisms to tell us about what's going on in the sky is to prepare for the fact that we are in a very unpredictable and unstable universe.
How, from your opinion, where do you think this is all going to go for us as a species? As a species, I mean, is there any... Let's just say that we all figure it out and we don't kill ourselves and we don't destroy ourselves. Let's say that's the case. Is there anything in the ancient texts that are predicting?
Are you ready to spill blood?
Like the Mayan calendar in 2012, it was this big shift that was supposed to happen, or something with it. All that kind of stuff. Is there anything that's in the horizon in our lifetime or maybe in our children's lifetime that we're trying to learn? That is something that is in the ancient text.
Try not to trip into territory.
About the size of Vermont, 110 fires. I mean, that's quite a lot. I saw stuff that you would not believe entirely. I was like, completely incinerated. And it gets worse year by year, even more than we can imagine. This one right now going out of control, I believe, and so, we are running out of water. Rainfall is no longer falling at the where it should be. So we are in the middle of major climate change. But to quote the miner on this, because they're also very clear on the side of the car and how to start to affect it. But it doesn't just happen like that. It's not like when you come to coffee and you go, no, I'm sorry, I'm going to break this conversation off. I'm going to go and my throat. I can see something happening. There's a window of opportunity. And if you put it on, you see it. They just disappeared into the Guatemala, into the front doors of sport, making the right stuff. So it's not like your Volkswagen engine suddenly hits a million miles and stops. No, it goes back to zero, and it's the real odometer keeps going. That was a big price of there's a 60-year window, and the idea is that 60-year window where not only the earth but also adapts to the changes, and it brings about chaos as well, and we have to adapt to those changes. But there's also a way that human consciousness is part of that change too. It's influenced by the change, it's change too. The two are the way of feeling things on the earth change and the solar system as well as an organism. Everything is rules within rules, and they basically are connected to each other in one form. So the idea is that we have to adapt to this new world and we have 60 years to do it. So the window is quite open up to 2012. After that, if we had to get a critical mass of the consciousness of the global consciousness and taking the future we need to adapt to the world. Because it's not so the window starts closing as the window closes. So we, in our nervous system, begin to pick up and those things are the way to go with. Let's try and get ourselves out of fossil fuels. Let's design magnetic levitation, magnetic gravity, and gravity devices that have already been designed through computers. So now, we're ready for and it's based on proximity of warfare. That's another story for another day. So we have new ideas coming out every single day on how to tackle pollution, how to get water out of thin air in the Sahara, and these solutions are adequate. You don't get to hear much about it because the noise is drowning out all this positive information. Because we as humans, on a general scale, we're addicted to chaos. So the news cycle is always talking about chaos. Not because of a conspiracy, but because we just like chaos. That's what makes the headline. So until we get over that to bypass it, we have to go and be fair to the positive news after all, and then lots of it. So the thing is, we're still going to hit that critical mass, and now we'll be going to 16 years ago from the window of 300 critical mass. These four challenges of Earth, the Earth is changing, it's not always it's a lovely area, and I actually found an antidote to this because a prediction of it is only as good as its time is made, because human consciousness and its ability to have free will, we can alter and also the solution. And there have been experiments done in Princeton, yet again, of the inclusion of human consciousness intelligence outcomes of events, including the use of transcendental meditation, by the way, which is another country way in which consciousness can alter the outcome of a local environment. And suffice to say that without spoiling the underscore, there is an antidote and a realization and that's the outcome. 12,000 years ago, we knew that the first percent of extinction. Though now, we're going to be the ones we're looking for. The outcome, the change is going to happen regardless of us anyway. It's the way that we ride the outcome, or we handle the outcome that makes a difference. And there's the potential that we will have to do. So I feel good about it. I see it all. want to sit here and social media and some negative stuff, yeah, I'll find that too. I just don't go there. I don't have a big time when I'm here. That's part of my particular makeup of life. And besides, I don't like that little work skill and sport. I want to enjoy my life. And so, you know, I went to Earth.
What you got for me this time?
And hopefully I improved it while I was there.
Beautifully said.
I'll get right on
And
that.
I'm going to ask you a few questions to ask all my guests. What is your definition of living a fulfilled life?
A fulfilled life. I think if you learn to understand what the soul is, who you really are, as the soul becomes a body. If you can get
That one's gonna leave a mark. You got this!
It's a very selfish journey for all of us, something which you have an experience, and that's all there is to do in the universe. The soul incarnates to have an experience. So when I was doing the research for the lost art of resurrection, that's what it was all about discovering about the concept of the living resurrection, which is the teachings or the mysteries and the ways, the 17 ways of the gods, which help us to understand the nature and the purpose of the soul. And the one thing that they used in the old days in order to help you connect with the essence of who you are as a soul was to have an induced near-death experience inside the pyramid or a sacred cave or a special tomb. And this is where the concept of resurrection comes from. It's been distorted by the Catholic Church, but the Gnostic Christians knew about it. They knew about the metaphor that it was. It's not a physical death, it's a metaphoric death. And again, kind of very long story short, the third year of introduction and learning was to take poison during a day and slowly kill yourself. Right? Hopefully with someone else helping you out, because it was a very dangerous practice. And the idea was that you're having an induced near-death experience and you spend 3 days out of the body. You go back to connect with the essence of who you are. You discover the purpose of your soul and you come back conscious of what you've learned, where you've been, and the purpose of your life. And many people, many enlightened people in history have undertaken that journey in order to discover themselves, and they become citizens and enlightened culture. Plato did it, Pythagoras did it 5 times, many of his followers also did it as well. And you can usually tell by the little crown that they have with the serpent and the vulture on the third eye. The fact that they are no longer associated with their base nature, which is the serpent, which flies along the material world, but the vulture which sees and flies above the serpent and sees the big picture. That's what the metaphor for that is. So if you can get to that point, whether it's by doing an induced near-death experience, which I don't recommend, by the way, unless you really know what you're doing, or doing extreme shamanism, ayahuasca is just an approximation of the real thing, by the way, or learning Kriya Yoga, which I understand to be the most closest you'll get to manipulating the energy flow of your body in a conscious direction, but you still need to do it for about 8 to 12 months. There are no shortcuts to this. So there are many different methods around the world that you can do it, and if you can get to that point, you become a well-enlightened light being. You're living a life consciously aware. That's the best way to do it.
Ready to spill blood on me?
And I believe it was in Michigan. There was a tribe whose name I cannot remember. They were 2 rooms, and they would take the poison off the skin.
I've allowed your opponents to interfere with your ability so they can put their special talents to use. Try not to trip Mr. Traverse tricky territory.
I think it's better because even the body is really you have to have a lot of techniques to facilitate this. The shaman said that this goes back to the way out of the body until you look at it. I like thinking about the
If you had a chance to go back in time and speak to your friend again,
to go back in time, I don't know. It's so easy to go back in there to think that if you had another way of doing problems across the world, and the people that fought with their belief. I deliberately chose to be in my life, and I take responsibility for choosing them, because it was the way I chose to overcome these obstacles that got me to where I am today, and I'm very happy about it. I'm still uncomfortable. I think I've got a 21-year-old people that it's very hard to replace it. First, 2013, that's one day, I'm happy manual, by the way, North Manual. So there are things in my life that I can do, but I'm still in my life, still time. Yeah, we are. So I'm definitely going to go back and check on that, because I understand the process. It is useful. We go around doing what we call spiritual terrorism around the world to fix these certain sites where the pollution has got into a thing that was formed and what we've done to it. So the seaworld involved, there are things that are golden big metal and I said who they are, they're very important. And from what I've learned from what happened in the other world is that we, before we arrive here on Earth, we choose to be here, we choose the people that we want to interact with, we choose the people that want to encounter and play with, just like Shakespeare. And they come here before us, and sometimes they pave the way for something else. And when you're ready, we go start to open and explore. So I own that. I don't have to believe it. I accept it for what it is. Because I've got something clinical psychologist dealing with sexual problems, smoking, drinking, and his notions of this this is the job. It's the story of you. You can't understand it. The story that came from this notion and this information that we were getting. The same thing with Gene Roddenberry is collecting from the so, yeah, I wouldn't say it's kind of in the same way that the ancestors used to do it. A god is the spirit that's found in anything. Stone has a god, water has a god, a blade of grass has a god, everything has a god. Once you understand the fundamentals of what that god is, so that's what it is. Once I understand everything about life, I become a god.
That was really
you started to understand what a god is, and you get to worship and so that's why I really felt in the center that there is something because one of the seances that I attended, we were able to connect with a who don't often show their hand very often. So when they appear in the room, it's like, hello, everybody pay attention to this. And they said, well, we're just very, enlightened people who have millions and trillions of experiences. And our job is to guide younger souls like yourself. So that was very comforting to know that I'm not, still up in the hierarchy. It gives you a barometer. And say, well, one day you're going to be in our position. You'll get, as you humans say, you'll get the T-shirt. And then you've got nothing else to do. You've had all the experience you've ever wanted. And I said, so are you the creator? Oh no, we're not the creator. I said, so what is the creator? Well, we can see the creator. And in the whole room, you can feel everybody in the room getting like this and saying, that's a very good question. I know. Let's just stop being about the bush. Can you see the creator? I said, we do. It's very close to us. And it's light, it's love. That's it? Yeah. It's light, it's love. don't you want to find out? And they said, no, we don't. Because it robs us of the one last question we have. And I thought, isn't that wonderful? They've had hundreds of experiences, billions of incarnations. They can now teach and guide the younger souls to do what they're doing and bring them to their level at one point. But they don't want them to become part of the creator because they said there's one last question we have. Once we stop asking that question and we find out what it is, we lose our identity. We join the creator, and that's it. Boom, you're back to the source. Very elegant, and I like that. I don't have to believe it. I don't have proof, but I like it because there's a ring of truth about it.
Where can people find out more about you and the amazing work you're doing?
Oh God, promo time, excellent. And by the way, we haven't even talked about my new book yet. So, Twist My Arm, we'll talk about it next time. InvisibleTemple.com. You'll find a bunch of my videos there, and lots of, articles and things. So, a good place to go for about a week.
Fair enough. And Freddie, do you have any parting messages for the audience?
Live long and prosper, be good to each other, and make useful decisions, especially in the time of election.
Ready to spill blood?
Reliable source on any subject. Don't take easy paths, because 9 times out of 10, in my experience, there's someone's opinion dressed as that. That's the mistake.
I've allowed your opponents into their weird early so they can put their special talent to use. Try not to trip it. Traverse the tricky territory.
Getting something, sometimes even not true, we're getting something further than a lie or something superficial. These things are everywhere, and if not, travel, go to the circus, where you would find the art you were looking for, and you would find yourself. It's worth it. You die. So if I become the god that I'm trying to become, you'll become the god that you're trying to become as well, and it's not that difficult, but it is.
Freddie, I appreciate you and all the amazing work you're doing.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for watching. Click on one of the videos below to continue your journey, and don't forget to subscribe.
Dreams show us that death is not an end, but a transition into another kind of existence. Death is indeed the end of our bodily existence. However, most of us are so strongly identified with our body, and are therefore inclined to think that when the body is dead, everything is finished. The greatest difficulty we have in imagining our own life after death may well be that while still living, we identify with as a body. And in doing so, goals to protect ourselves even though we realize but know that it is the true self essence that transcends one's physical body. It is the veil of Maya which conceals the true character of spiritual reality, creating a cosmic illusion of reality. My wounds. Always understand that
Yeah, I'll get right on.
ultimate reality. American psychiatrist Raymond Moody coined the term near-death experience called NDE in his 1975 book Life, where he identifies a common set of experiences of those who came back from death, including seeing one's own body lying dead on the bed, while one hovers above or beside it, an overwhelming feeling of peace and well-being, freedom from pain, floating or drifting through darkness or time, encountering beings of light, such as visual images of one's past, a feeling of finally being back home, or being in a realm more real than reality itself, among others. Since then, much more scientific research has been done on NDEs, which seem to confirm that consciousness is non-local. That is to say, consciousness somehow continues even after being declared clinically dead, suggesting that the brain is not the generator of consciousness, but merely acts as a receiver. In many NDEs, the subject has had distinct feelings of reluctance to return to everyday reality. Patients report hearing a voice say, "You must go back." There appears to be a further threshold from which apparently there would be no return. Such was the case of Jung, who experienced an NDE in 1944 after a heart attack, which ended with his doctor telling him that he had to return to Earth, upon which his vision ceased. He felt profoundly disappointed, and reality seemed to have been artificially built up. He thought, "Now I must return to the box system again." Our brain seems to tune down the intensity of the psyche until it becomes bound to lower frequencies, which confines the individual once again to the realities of space-time. That is why, when Jung returned after his visions, he felt imprisoned in that intolerable grey world with its box system, which is only a segment of existence. The body, which had been irrealized, as Jung puts it, can once again be felt. It seems that from all this, one could say that all material phenomena, including our body, lie below a definite threshold of energy intensity. The unconscious, however, is not bound to matter and space-time, and therefore there is no reason that it should be affected by death. During the day, Jung felt depressed. In the night, however, he had profound visions, of which he writes, "It is impossible to convey the beauty and intensity of emotion during those visions. We shy away from the word eternal, but I can describe the experience only as the ecstasy of a non-temporal state in which present, past, and future are one. Everything that happened at the time had been brought together into a concrete whole. The only thing that feeling could grasp would be a sun, an iridescent whole, containing all at once expectation of a beginning, surprise at what is now happening, and satisfaction or disappointment with the result of what has happened. One is interwoven into an indescribable whole, and yet observes it with complete objectivity." In many accounts of NDEs, the survivor's everyday ego is confronted with a voice or with an inner friend, who would be interpreted as a
What you got for me this time?
of what Jung calls the self, the total personality. In some instances, the ego also seems to merge partially with its inner self. Maybe cites the case of someone in a deep coma who met with a being of light. A hand reaching out to him invited him to come along so that he himself floated aloft and then moved with the light being in the hospital room. The man says, "Now, immediately, when I had joined him and had spirit myself, in a way we had been fused into one. We were two separate ones, too, of course. Yet he had full control of everything that was going on as far as I was concerned." An intimate association between ego and self is described here, but not a complete merging of the two. In another report, the everyday ego is so greatly altered that it closely resembles the self.
You have returned!
My new ego was no longer the old familiar ego, as it were, even if it did seem to me somehow familiar, like something I had always known, but which had been deeply buried under a superstructure of fears, hopes, wishes, and desires. This ego had
Who says you can't have them
this
both?
way. It
Here,
was a
with 5 endless avenues to excitement, is my friend and yours, the magnificent Ogre Mage.
as individual as a thing. It brings to the same time whether the two aspects, ego and self, almost completely united, but the ego remains part of a large whole. It's not the whole of the self, and although these patients he described seeing himself as a little sphere on the inside of a round ball. It is just this relation between ego and self which Jungian psychology attempts to establish in every person during his or her lifetime through the process of individuation, the journey towards wholeness. For if the ego identifies with itself, then it suffers an inflation. If it goes too far from itself, then life loses its meaning. A small number of 2,500 dreams, compiled by von Franz, are death dreams, which are not just dreams surrounding the archetype of death, but dreams of people who subsequently died. Therefore, they are of a precognitive nature, as they can anticipate the death of someone. These are the types of dreams the book deals with. In death dreams, the end of physical life is represented in a symbolic way, but almost always accompanied by manifestations that allude to the continuation of the person's life. A psychologist will not begin by telling a patient facing death, "You have to believe in afterlife," but rather simply emphasize the individual's dream and what the dream means for him. It is up to the patient to believe in it or not. The voice of nature is instinct, which is the dream, helps one to die in harmony with oneself, living right into
It's in the
oneself.
bag.
This is a great advantage, since one does not continue to fight with oneself. One is no stranger to oneself. That is why, generally speaking, it's a great consolation and calming down.
Yeah?
A skeptic
Top of my
might insist
to-do
that dreams are merely wish fulfillments, against which the following can be said. It is not at all consistent with our general experience that dreams only reflect unconscious wishes. On the contrary, they most often depict a completely objective, psychic natural event, uninfluenced by the wishes of the ego. In cases where the dreamer has illusions about the approaching death, or is not aware of its proximity, dreams arise that show it with total brutality and without compassion. It is as if the unconscious wants to convey an urgent message to rid oneself of all self-deception. Such is the case of a woman who had cancer and dreamt that her wristwatch was damaged. She brought it to the watchmaker, who told her that it would be on repair. 2 days later, she dreamt that the watch was damaged. It was not to the head of her, it was a terrible shock for her, but she had accepted her fate. After this realization, however, she continued
I'll get right
to
on that.
live and lived for many more years. Thus, we must make a distinction. Having dreams about death does not necessarily mean that death is imminent. There are death dreams that indicate death, and dreams about death that occur to people in order to have them face death, and can be interpreted more as a memento mori, meditation on one's mortality. Whether that person will get a salutary shock and continue to live, or if it actually means that one will die, that one is never quite sure of until the end has come. Von Franz points out, however, that there is sometimes a kind of uncanny feeling where a certain dream forebodes death, but that is more of a parapsychological feeling. Scientifically, one couldn't give any reasons why one death means actual death and another means only the problem of death. Sometimes one gets a gruesome shiver when people tell one a dream about death, as if one's nervous sympathetic system would say, "Watch out, this dream means death." One of Von Franz's former colleagues had a very severe illness and had a dream that said, "You can go on living if you want." He made a great effort to At the time, the dream says, "It is your destiny to die."
What you got for me
There
this
is
time?
destiny and freedom at the same time. One of the functions of dreams is the preparation for some approaching phase or threshold in life. Death is such a threshold for which the unconscious wants to prepare us. While people of all ages can dream of death, they are more frequent in the second half of life. This is because during midlife, when most people have reached the top of their external life, physically, biologically, and sociologically, the psyche starts a natural preparation process towards death in order to attain inner maturation. This shows that death is not something that happens at the end of our life. It's an opus magnum, a great work, and the effort that we make, the conscious realization, is completely essential. We can thus say that, since midlife, we are starting to live towards this eternalization. In some cases, death dreams can appear at a young age. A man at Symbols, he writes about a case in which he was approached by a psychiatrist who had received a booklet with a series of 12 dreams as a Christmas present for his 10-year-old daughter, written when she was 8. They were some of the weirdest series of dreams in the series, 9 of which centered on the archetypal themes of destruction and restoration. The girl had dreams one would expect in an aging person who was approaching death. Indeed, they were confirmed to be death dreams, as one year later, died on Christmas of an infectious disease. There are also cases in which someone dreams about the death of some other person, usually one that is close to him or her. A colleague of Jung's was suffering from a deadly gangrenous fever. A former patient of his, who had no knowledge of the nature of his doctor's illness, dreamt that the doctor died in a great fire. At that time, the doctor had just entered a hospital and the disease was only beginning. 3 weeks later, he died. Just before Jung's death, his friend Lawrence van der Post, who was on a voyage from Africa to Europe, had a dream of Jung waving and calling out, "I'll be seeing you." On that very day, nature joined the event and lightning struck Jung's favorite tree in the garden. This spectacle of old age would be unendurable did we not know that our psyche reaches into a region held captive neither by change in time nor by limitation of place.
Yes.
In that form of being, our birth is a death, and our death is a birth. The scales of the whole hang parallel. It is very important for the unconscious that we accept our mortality. For one has the chance to experience in death the birth of one's soul substance, the self, the great work which is the completion of one's inner wholeness. The realization of the self means a restoration of one's relation to God. In the most vital moment of self-realization, God unites, as it were, with us. This would mean that through the realization of the self, we assist at the same time in God's incarnation, God's completeness. Self-knowledge is a reunion of the soul with God. The state of wholeness is inseparable from the experience of God. Individuation, the process of psychic and spiritual growth, is actually a preparation for death, the most essential transformation of our whole being. It is as if it were the goal and sole purpose of our life, and all that is important to the unconscious. As such, individuation is much more important than death itself.
If you're sure that's what
This
you
may
want.
explain why people who have the feeling that they have completed their life's task do not fear death, for they have done their best to attain wholeness. In the final stage of individuation, we finally become our uniqueness or essence, and also, paradoxically, one with all other souls. The symbols that manifest in death dreams are images that also appear during the individuation process. It is as if this process manifests itself abruptly before death, if it had not been consciously